when you're fighting in the bureaucrats, the establishment, the administration, Biden administration, you found solace and refuge in the writings of the great Alexander Solzhenitsyn. In particular, I think the wonderful edition of the Gulag Archipelago prefaced by Jordan Peterson. So today, Daniel Mahoney is probably the best reader of Solzhenitsyn, and he is with us here in Yash, in Moldova, speaking about Alexander Solzhenitsyn. What is, for like our audience, perhaps, the most important lesson you've drawn from this wonderful Russian Eastern Orthodox thinker?
When there is great evil, a immature childlike response to being afraid is to cover your eyes. And Ayn Rand would say that you can ignore reality, but it can ignore the consequences of reality. So Jordan Peterson would say, well, you haven't studied enough to know views that you could have known if you had spent yourself. So, but I don't like researching vaccines. I'd rather be reading poetry. Like, I don't want to know about the nanolipid particles of that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care. But you have to care. You have to study and you have to learn, and you have to have an understanding that what is going on isn't so unknowable. There is a requirement of education that we need more people to know what's going on, to understand, and to be very clear about the nature of totalitarianism. So this book is phenomenal, and it really talks about humanitarianism as an alternative to Christian concepts. The state is inherently corrupt, instead the soul is corrupt, except there's no repentance and mercy. But this book is phenomenal. But his work in general on tracing that outlines what is this title here?
With the persistence of the ideological lie, the totalitarian impulse then and now.
So he carefully traces, oh, it's actually in English, yes. So this actually traces totalitarianism. I would say what Solzhenitsyn has taught me, and I'm quoting a lot of other people to make my point, is that poorly deceptive, principled action that's clear and forceful is necessary. Evil is constantly like this. It's like during COVID, we would think that we had made progress and we got something done, and I just would exhale and be like, we did the thing. This is gonna make a difference. And evil would just shift and attack from a different angle. And so people at personal sacrifice, helping to stop evil. There's a point with war where you have to leave, planting your own gardens. You have to go into any other day. Like, someone has to volunteer to stop building themselves and to resist evil. And I think that deeply understanding what's going on with the body, with vaccinations, with scientific advancements, and to even get into transhumanism and uploading of consciousness cloud and everything I'm saying, with extension of life and longevity of people are going to be a full 120 doctor into years very, very soon because of CRISPR and gene editing technology, advancements and affecting our telomere length, sulfurs of different ways, personalized AI medicine, AI developed drugs. We are one to see a proliferation of a lot of things. People need to educate themselves, they need to take very decisive action, having understood totalitarianism, its effects, its messaging, how it manipulates people, and how the time to have really clear action is like at the beginning. Solzhenitsyn has edified me that you who act early and fast, and even in an act of terrorism, like if someone comes onto a plane, the moment that they move towards their crime, they're a little shaky, they're a little panicked, you need to attack immediately. Every moment that you don't attack for them, their confidence is growing and fear starts going into the people. So being really clear about totalitarianism, how it works, what is the persistence of the ideological lie, and then understanding basics of these things so that you can take immediate, swift, clear action. I want to be having these conversations now, and now we're in the cafeteria line at the Gulag. So thank you for sitting at this topic.
Well, thank you, but I would only add one more thing. This is the last question. You also wrote recently about, I'll rephrase this, because I'm coughing. Putem să punem asta la china? I'll rephrase this.
I'll add the last question about social statistics. Yeah.
No,
long cities at the end.
No, what? Listen, totalitarianism manifests itself through eyewitness. I'll come to this. Nu vreau să mă la noastră și ca ultima întrebare să fie cumva mai engaging noi la noastră și apoi mă întorc la ea. Aia merge? Perfect.
Amândouă.
Așa, cu amândoi.
Vă uitați fascinat la ea.
Nu.
Glumesc.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we are now closing our interview with Stephanie Lind.
Dar sunetul ăsta e foarte puternic. Deja să nu e care.
Da, e multă gălăgie.
Ia liniște, vă rău!
Sorry. And I like your tone. We are drawing to a close with this interview in the presence of Stephanie Lind, a great expert from the United States who fought against totalitarianism, so to speak, in the COVID era, but who is also interested in sacred aesthetics as a response to the predominant ugliness that we see, not just in the former Soviet bloc, here perhaps in Romania, where in Iași in particular you discover very easily the contrast between the classical buildings and of course the socialist, the realist architecture, which was imposed on us by the Soviets. But in general, Stephanie, I would say, with brutalism, with other forms of functionalism in modern architecture, you see a lot of ugliness and not so much beauty. Why are you interested in responding to this by embracing the notion of sacred aesthetics, and what's the secret of this?
Well, you already mentioned brutalist architecture and some other facets. The way that you design cities is very key to human flourishing. I would say that I'd like to speak to the part that really goes with this interview, which is that we are going to see a proliferation of a solution of 15-minute cities. And it's going to be a mechanism of pour into, where you're quarantined to your area. I think we're entering an age of pandemics. Not just because we're going to have natural liquids like weasels, but also man-made disasters. There is an element of the 15-minute city that's going to be used to lock down, survey, and control people. And this is something that the form of a city naturally does when citizens feel that they belong to a place and feel responsible for it. If you feel like this is my street, you invest in it, you have eyes on the street. Criminals look for uninhabited, unowned spaces that don't really belong to anyone. And we built many of those in the 20th century. So when you live in a place that is your home, it's your heritage, and it's your family, there's a different level of investment, a dinner on the pays. Beautiful cities are ones where people decide again and again to invest in a home. And this profoundly affects mothers with small children, the elderly, and the disabled. I think that we are not prepared as an American society for what is coming. In the 1986 Act, a pharmaceutical corporations not liable, so they're damaged. It meant that every single shot that was added to the childhood vaccine schedule added $1 billion in annual profits to that company. There's 100 shots on the CDC schedule in America. Now, you may have a sense interacting with Americans, even though you're very polite and respectful, and I know have a love from America. There's a lack of sophistication in American traditional. There's a lack of sophistication in Americans that you're seeing because many of us have lower IQs because of 100 vaccine shots that are cumulative. So when someone is missing a 10 or 15 or 20 IQ points, it may not be immediately obvious in the way that you're interacting with them, that they are simply not as sophisticated or smart as you. And so we have a lot of parents that are managing and dealing with, they're kind of not one like kid. Like they're not really successful, not able to like be a functional adult kid. And as more of these people, and in California, 1 in every 7 Black African-American boys has autism. When you have an unbelievable amount of children who have low IQs and autism and they're growing up, a lot of people underestimate the IQ crisis that is going to mandate alternative housing that houses these people. Something I'm incredibly passionate, housing the elderly and the somewhat disabled. And so we are going to see a proliferation of very ugly, brutalist housing blocks of disabled people.
And then why you decided to come to Europe and see some beautiful cities, including perhaps Florence and Venice, and perhaps also Iași to some extent. For us, the viewers of this podcast, it's pretty obvious that you embrace beauty in all manner of ways. And we want to thank you, Stephanie, for doing that.
Well, can I just make this closing statement? When you have a city that's built not for the automobile, but for the person, the intellectually disabled, the elderly can go to a park bench and sit and have communion even if they can't drive. And we have extended longevity where, you have a stroke and now you don't have peripheral vision, you can't drive, but you're normal, otherwise intact. People you just used to die, now we keep them alive. So you have decreased quality of life. But cities with gentle density, where you have the ability to walk to places, is very important to the intellectually disabled. For children, your daughter should be able to walk to dance class and get ice cream when she's 12 and not mean, and for you just to feel safe so that the mom doesn't have to be on top of her activities. You multiply that up by 5, and it's like, I'm not doing anything but chauffeuring other people's activities, And so it's important that we design our cities in the historical way. Beauty is important, but also the form of the city that promotes security, that promotes access, and that promotes community. All of these things are very structural to how we flourish as people. The intactness of our marriages and into the generations, our engagement of people, even as grandparents. And so, yeah, I think we have a beautiful future to build as we look forward to building beautiful cities that are rich in community and, most importantly, that are free.
Stephanie Lynn, thank you for doing this.
Well, Brady, thank you.